The Chicago Bears wide receiver Rome Odunze is destined to have a bigger and more impactful role for their offense in 2025.
Welcome to the Scouting Room Podcast with Dame and Dan. If you love NFL football, college football, and the NFL Draft, this podcast is for you. Touchdown! Dame and Dan will provide real analysis featuring analytics and film to back up their takes. Please sit down, grab your drink, and let's scout.
Welcome back into the Scouting Room NFL podcast with Dame and Dan, and I'm Dame, and that's Dan. And Dan, how are we feeling, man?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. This is the kind of stuff that we live for, right? We get to watch film before the show. We prep. We get to bring up the analytics and how it matches up with the film. When we bring it to you guys, this is what we want to do. And that's why we're doing it in like a couple of guys at a time, because that gives us enough time to watch the film, to really watch the film, so we're not over-saturating a show for you guys, right? We don't want to oversaturate. We want to break it down to the point where we can talk about 1, 2, 3 people, and you guys actually can consume that content and then take it into being actionable with it. So that's what we love to do.
Yeah, man, and we got two going to be second-year wide receivers from the 2024 NFL Draft class. We're going to talk about Rome Odunze, seventh? I think it was the 7th overall pick last year to the Chicago Bears. And then we have late first-round pick Ricky Pearsall for the San Francisco 49ers. And Dan, when you look at what we saw from Rome last year, right, what we saw from him, we talked about Marv on last week's episode. Rome was another guy that came in, didn't have the 1,300 yards receiving that people expected him to and everything. But he on the season, he caught 54 of his 101 targets for 734 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. He averaged over 13 and a half yards per reception. His catch percentage was roughly around 53.5%. And when you look at what he brought to the table, what he did well as a rookie, Dan, talk to us about Rome Odunze and what you saw on film.
This is one of the guys that I was really excited about, because you and I had talked about him before the cycle, how he bulked up going into his last year at Washington. He wanted to be more physical, and that shows up not just in the catch point down the field. It shows up right now in the release packages. He's got to develop more packages. He still is more of just a hesitation or just an outside release player, but you want to see a little bit more fluidity with that, be able to hesitate inside or outside, to be able to cut back inside, use a little bit of those rocker steps, but also the physical nature, right? We see it in the release where if someone's going to get physical with him, he has no problem giving it back and utilizing that, right, to be able to make separation in the stem. And that's kind of what we saw early on, him kind of resorting to it a little bit too much, which can create less separation downfield. But I loved all the different types of ways they used Rome Odunze. They put him in motion a ton. They were able to get him in one-on-one situations. They were able to throw him down the field, big over the middle of the field, right down the seams, right? I like what he's able to do from a route running perspective. It's better than what I expected too, because even though coming out, I still thought he was a good mover, I thought there were some details at the top of his route where he would allow separation to minimize, right? Maybe being a little bit too lenient outside of his breaks, letting guys stay in that hip pocket. He was much more concise. He sold vertically a little bit better. Yeah. He sunk his hips better this year. And then when we talk about all the different ways that we talk about with motion, they used him on 72 routes of his 569 routes in motion. For a rookie with DJ Moore on the team, they also had Keenan Allen. Let's not forget, they used him a lot to get those motion moves, right? They didn't target him a ton, though, 15 targets. And so I think going into year 2, you might see that bump up. No more Keenan Allen. And really, Rome Odunze took over as the number 2 receiver. It was kind of a 1A, 1B situation with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. The connection between the two is still developing. There are some times where you see Rome win downfield and the football either goes over his head or it's behind him. But then there's times where you see recognition. You see the flashes. There was a clip that I believe I posted on Blue Sky. We're going to show you guys the clip here too, where Rome wins outside. It's just a clear win to the outside. He throws the hand up, right? He's like, look, I'm open. But there's a safety coming deep from middle of the field to his inside, so his left-hand shoulder. Caleb recognizes that and throws it back shoulder and trusts him enough to make that adjustment, and he does make the adjustment. He makes a really nice catch along the right-hand sideline. That's the kind of stuff that you want to see young players make and adjust to. We know Rome Odunze is a very good downfield player. He doesn't really drop the football a ton. He's great in those situations. So the body control and the ability to win in different ways. Again, the route tree was much better, more expanded than I expected to see in his first year with Chicago, with all the tumultuous nature, all the different changes in offensive coordinator and coach. There's a lot of things going on. He got 101 targets. That's a fantastic step as a rookie when you have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen on the field. So he needs to work on the release packages and just some subtle nuance throughout the stem. A little more speed dilation would be nice, but again, he is still learning. But overall, I was really impressed, and I really appreciated what I saw from Rome, even though there are some things he's got to work on.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to the point of things that I liked, and you hit the nail on the head. And I want to throw some numbers out there again, courtesy of NFL Pro. That's pro.nfl.com. Please go subscribe and check it out. In 17 games last year, he ran 143 routes against press coverage. He was targeted 25 times, only caught 8 of those 25 targets for 126 yards, 0 touchdowns. His catch percentage was 32%. His catch rate over expected was a negative 18.1%. He averaged about 1.7 yards of separation. And I want our listeners, our fans, to understand this. Like, when you're seeing guys and you hear guys hit those numbers, it's not about, okay, well, maybe if he was a 4.21 athlete like an Xavier Worthy, maybe it would work out. He could just win the vertical plane, no, or beat press coverage. No, it's more so the release package. You don't beat press because you're fast and quick twitched. Some guys can live like that, but 9 times out of 10, you need to be able to win in the contact window. And that's something with him. And you talked about his release. It's very repetitive. It's might get a one-step jab. Mostly it's speed. It's speed releases. Speed release outside. Things like that. You don't see him use his hands enough when guys want to, especially as an outside receiver. If you release outside, as a corner, I'm going to get my inside hand on you, ride that kind of that rib cage to low hip area, squeeze you to the sideline, turn to look for the ball, right? Because you know that one thing he excels at is at the catch point. He's physical, he's strong. Also, he's very fluid and agile in the air with body control, can contort his frame with the ball in flight and everything like that. And again, when you see him against off coverage, 303 routes ran, 49 targets, 31 receptions, 384 yards receiving, 1 receiving touchdown. His catch percentage jumped to 63.63%, and he got more yak as well. He averaged 3.4 yards of separation on those targets and on those routes. When he's targeted, because again, it's playing off coverage. Like I said, speed dilation. One thing I love about his ability is he gives you versatility from an alignment standpoint. He aligns at every single wide receiver spot, and he thrived when they will allow him to be that power slot that can produce in the slot, get those mismatches one-on-one with smaller nickels who he can box out at the catch point, right? And he does a good job just tracking the ball. I love the way he tracked the ball down the field, where there was a throw, I think it was it against the Detroit Lions? It might have been. And it's him one-on-one. They motioned him. They were actually backed up inside their own 10, 15-yard line. And they motioned them across the formation, gave him a free run, free release off the snap, and he gets past, or he gets even and gets past the DB. And Caleb it was like a long handoff, just beautiful throw right over the left shoulder, and the ability to track it, right? Like he ran a slot fade. I can't remember which game I was watching on that one. It was a slot fade. DB was in his hip pocket. Caleb threw it, back shoulder it. His ability to turn, locate, go up with confidence, with strong hands, he does that at such a high clip. So when I look at Rome, man, and again, I think, and one thing I noted down, that Shane Waldron offense was terrible from a spacing standpoint. There were times when DJ Moore ran a clear out, and they were on the same side, DJ Moore on the outside, Rome was in the slot, and they were kind of like a little bunched together. DJ Moore runs, I believe it was a clear out, just a go route, just a takeoff. And I don't know if the route was supposed to be a up and out, like a double move. I pray that's not what the design was, because I'm like, this doesn't really help anything. It turned out to be an interception because he ran the out. It was against zone, and when he ran the out route, I was like, maybe if he sits, he should be fine. But he ran it out, and then he turned up field. Caleb tried to get it to him because I think it was like a half field read, and it was the only two guys in the progression. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And it was an interception. And it's like, yeah, like you can't have those type of things, right? Like you want to see, and now especially with Ben Johnson coming in, right? And Rome's most productive routes were he won the vertical. He had caught 10 receptions on 34 targets and everything. That was his most ran route as well. He ran 231 vertical routes last year. He averaged almost 24 yards per catch in those situations, but his catch percentage was below 30. Where you look at the outbreaking routes, he was 16 for 20, 169, 2 touchdowns, almost 11 yards per catch, and a catch percentage of 80%. In breaking routes, he was 16 of 35 for 228 and a touchdown. And then the crazy part about it is he literally, like, vertical routes, he averaged 2.2 yards of separation. Outbreaking routes, 3.2. In breaking routes, 3.2. So he got open. He was able to separate and get away from the coverage. What you want to see now in this going up into this next year, Dan, is the question I have is, can he be, because you got to look at what this offense looks like now. No Keenan Allen, right? Keenan Allen's no longer there. I think he's still a free agent. So it's DJ Moore. It's Rome Odunze. They drafted Luther Burton III, top of the second round. They still have Cole Kmet. They drafted Colston Loveland, our tight end 1 for the 2025 NFL draft, top 10. Can he be a guy? He saw 101 targets last year. Do we think that increases and either he's solidified himself as that true wide receiver 2 in this offense, or maybe even wide receiver 1 and leapfrogs DJ Moore?
That's going to be the talking point, right? I think just based on how this offense looks and how we know Ben Johnson wants to operate, you're probably going to see Rome Odunze take some of those Amon-Ra St. Brown type of roles where you can put him in the slot. I know everyone wants to just put Luther Burden there and say that's your Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yeah. They don't play it relatively the same way in that sense. You want Luther Burden as your yards after catch player right now. Hopefully, year 2, you can start to see him play a little bit more in that physical nature when he's able to go make some Amon-Ra St. Brown catches over the middle of the field. He can elevate. We know Rome Odunze can do that. I don't know if we're going to see a huge amount of target increase. I think 100 to 110, maybe 115 targets is still right there for him at the most, because that connection, it was already there. And he had 700 plus yards on 54 receptions with those 101 targets. So there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed. I understand that. But we know Caleb Williams, at least the flashes were absolutely there. The timing was off. And again, when you go from one offense where it's all on you at USC really to do everything in his second year, to being a lot the same in his first year as a rookie, where the offensive line protection was not there. We know that, but he was still able to make some things happen with all of the head coach, the offensive coordinator stuff happening. But all that aside, now you have at least what looks like investment in the offensive line for that team. Ben Johnson, we know, is a proven commodity now. And the thing for Rome is, you could tell that there were some times where he didn't always know what to do. Whether that's miscommunication with the offensive coordinator, or like you said, the spacing. You'll have times where receivers are on a drag route or over the middle of the field and they stop or they keep going. Well, if it's man coverage, you should just keep going. If you stop, he's in your hip pocket right away. And you see that where he kind of hesitates. He's at the top of his route and he has that guy in his hip pocket and he stops. And Caleb throws it to the middle of the field and he's like, look, you got to keep moving. Yes, that's in the brain there. And then sometimes you see him keep going when he needs to settle in zone. So there was a lot of times there where I think just the communication needs to be a little bit better with the offensive coordinator, with the quarterback, and now Rome in the second year. That should be tweaked up to a much better level with Ben Johnson honing in those finer details. So we know the talent is there. I don't think there was anything in his rookie season that says that he wasn't what he was coming out. If anything, he looked better, even as a complete wide receiver in his first season in Chicago with all the things going on there. So I love the usage, and I think in year 2 we should see a much more improved, catch percentage. You don't want to catch 50% of your 101 targets. You want to see closer to 70 catches, and I think that we can absolutely see that in year 2.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think when you just look at look at that situation, and just kind of some final notes and nuggets, in terms of target location. He ran 54 routes outside the numbers, right? 54 targets, 27 receptions, 383 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. On down the seam, 38 targets, 25 receptions, 326 yards receiving. And he also gained more yak because now when you're up the seam, you're in the middle of the field, there's more space to create. And to your point about just the inconsistencies, right? Like when you're dealing with man coverage and zone, a lot of it's like, okay, I always talk about this when I'm scouting wide receivers. How do you handle crossing patterns and over routes against zone? The rule of thumb is if that second level defender steps forward, you run it behind him. If he drops deep, you run it in front of him and you make it more of a shallow route. You clear yourself of that defender and you allow him to get to his spots so he can't impede or disrupt your route. And then there was a play against I think it was Detroit on the road where, and don't get me wrong, did I think that Caleb probably shouldn't have thrown the ball? Yeah, because it was a little bit of a high-low coverage where you had a linebacker sitting underneath. He's reading the eyes of the quarterback. Rome is I think he's either in the slot or he's kind of like a nasty, reduced outside split receiver. Then you had the safety over the top, and he tries to run a slant, but he runs it and he kind of stops he stops at a point, and I was like, but Caleb's trying to lead him into a hole. He's trying to lead him into that void or whatever. And like the linebacker's trying to read it. He's reading Caleb. He got where he needed to be, and he landed his mark. And then the safety was triggering down, and it was almost a turnover. If I remember correctly, I think the safety tried to go down and pick it off, but it was too low of a throw. But yeah, it's one of those situations where this is where guys, they at practice and after practice, what are you seeing against zone? How are you reading it? Because if they can read it like together, in sync, in unison, it's going to help them a ton. You need to be on the same page. Why did Tom Brady and Danny Amendola and Wes Welker and Julian Edelman and Troy Brown and Deion Brand, all those slot receivers, how are they able to work so well on those option routes? They saw the game the same. So it's like they were on the same page of, all right, if that overhang defender drops off in the curl of flats, I'm going to hit you down. Hit me between the numbers, boom, I can get you 3 or 4 more yards after the catch. We stay rolling. If he drops deep, I can break this out. Hit me on the before I get to the sideline, I can turn it up, get yards after the catch. If he does stay outside and he stays shallow, I could then break it to an in breaker, a little quick 5-yard in cut. You have to be on the same page when you're facing different defensive coverages and shells. So I'm excited to see what Rome looks like. For me, I think it's a lot of mouths to feed, and Ben Johnson's got a lot of. He has a good problem with all these receivers and tight ends and everything, and now it's going to be Caleb. I want Caleb to not be the star, but be the point guard early in this season, where he just distributes the ball, get it to whoever's open. I don't care about pecking order and don't try to please anybody. If you're open, get it to him. If he's not open, go to the next read. Do those type of things, and that's going to keep everybody's morale up. But you talk about morale and morale boosting, man. Like for what Ricky Pearsall went through shortly after being drafted, ended up had that horrific incident with someone. I think they tried to rob him, and he ended up getting shot and everything. And thank God that he was able to make it out and just be able to live life, right?
Right.
Put football aside, just be able to live life. But he was able to return to the team and be able to return to the field for the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm gonna tell you, Dan, I'm excited for Ricky Pearsall in 2025, man. I'm excited for him in 2025 because his tape on what he put on film, 46 targets all season, right? He played in 11 games. He started 46 targets. He caught 31 of the 46 for 400 yards receiving and 3 receiving touchdowns. And guys, I know you'd be like, man, 400 yards, DP? Like, why are you excited about that? Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you why I'm excited about what he's able to do. This young man, first of all, his catch percentage was over 67%. His catch rate over expectation was plus 3.6%. Like he did so many things well for this offense, for the San Francisco 49ers. And I think he pairs well with Brock Purdy in terms of he's a type of guy that is going to play with the timing and rhythm passing game that Kyle Shanahan deploys. He meshes well with the quick and short passing game, being able to get to his spots. I call him a soft spot finder against zone defenses. He gets into the nicks and crannies and crevices of the defense. Those voids he finds, and he settles into them, gets nice and cozy like a nice warm blanket during wintertime, Dan. He snuggles in very well, and then he runs his routes. For me, I love this. He runs his routes with instincts and spatial awareness. So like we talked about just now, we're talking about with Rome, and it's just simple of, okay, what do you see with the zone defenses and different things like that? He understands spot droppers and their depth, and he reads it and gets behind it. I think it was, and one thing that I think people might be shocked with, his play strength against physical corners was good. It was really good, man. Like, it was against Tampa Bay. He tries to release outside because he's trying to run an in-breaking route, but he wants to push the DB in man coverage outside, then break across his face. DB gets really handsy, gets really physical, and most times, Dan, especially with young receivers that aren't like 6'2", 215, that's not known for overpowering guys, they kind of not wilt in the moment, but that physicality kind of overwhelms them. That wasn't the case with Ricky Pearsall in this rep. He kept fighting, and he eventually tossed the guy aside, broke back inside into the middle of the field, which was wide open, and got it and caught the ball when it might have been a first down or made it close for a first down conversion. And it's those type of plays. And I think we were texting about it last night. The route bag, like his routes, and he went to the Senior Bowl. It was him and Ladd, and I'll never forget that. I took flack for this. And don't get me wrong, yes, it looks one way now because Ladd had the outstanding rookie year he had. Ladd wasn't shot either. Thank God Ladd wasn't shot. But I always had Ricky Pearsall over Ladd as a player because Ricky Pearsall, I know I can live with him as a pure slot, and I know I can live with him as an outside receiver playing the Z spot. I don't have the same concerns him full time in that realm. And his ability to win vertical, win on those routes 20-plus yards down the field. Dan, I'm excited for Ricky Pearsall heading into 2025 because I think this is a guy, and I'm going to say this. There were talks about, they might trade Brandon Ayuk. That was before his guaranteed money kicked in, stuff like that. They didn't trade him. Dan, we know that Brandon Ayuk and the Niners are not the most cohesive tandem. I would not be shocked by mid-season we see Brandon Ayuk off this team if things don't go the way they want, right? You just paid Brock Purdy the money you paid him, right? Now you got to go out here and produce when the pressure is on. Once you get paid, all excuses are out the window. You still have Brandon Ayuk. You still have George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, things of that nature. I think Ricky Pearsall has a wide receiver one upside in this offense if, for, say, Brandon Ayuk, whether it's during the season or after the season, things doesn't go well and they trade him.
That's a little bold for me, to be honest with you. I don't see number one, but I know where you're coming from. So one of the things that really didn't shock me, but it impressed me was the physical play style at the catch point, through the route, at the release. He's a very good release player too. He understands how to move guys. And I think one of the cool parts about the release with physicality is that if he wants to get to the inside, he doesn't have to release inside. He can release outside because he knows if he moves the body language of the DB, if he opens those hips towards the sideline, he can use the arm over. And he fought back multiple times with his arm over to get back to the inside and create that separation against press man coverage. There was a rep against Jalen Ramsey where he tries to shock him and he backs off, but it doesn't matter. Hands were quick at the line of scrimmage there. He releases right inside and he's got 3 yards of separation instantly, even with Jalen Ramsey backing off and trying to get back in there. We know Jalen's not what he used to be, but still, he's a very good cover corner, and he's not a rookie. He's not a rookie. He's able to that's one of the things, right? He's smart, a very smart football player. So Ricky is what he was. And if you guys actually go back to the draft season where he came out 2 years ago, I did a show with Matt Waldman where I was pumping up Ricky Pearsall before everyone saw him at the Senior Bowl. I was talking about Ricky Pearsall, and I talked to him about him as a used car salesman because he will He will try every tactic in the book to get you to buy whatever he is selling. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to buy it and he's going to beat you and he's going to find ways to get open. Like, that's what I love about him. And it's not just like the tools as a route player. The 49ers believed in him too. They moved him all over. He was in motion about 15% of the time with his 271 routes. So about 40 routes in motion. You probably would see that bump up next year. But also where he lined up, it wasn't like half and half, but it was close. 109 routes from slot, 157 routes from out wide. And he can win in a variety of ways. He averaged nearly 13 yards per reception in the slot and out wide. Like, that's the kind of player that he is. The difference is, like he reminds me of a little bit like Amon-Ra St. Brown. He, in the way that he can win, like he can win from outside, he can win from inside. Amon-Ra's gotten better as a yards after catch player, and specifically because the offense has kind of geared him towards that way. But he wasn't a yards after catch threat coming out. He's kind of turned into that zone beater where he can find space. Ricky is still kind of learning that spot where his yards after catch is pretty much non-existent. He's got like 0 yards after catch above expectations or negatives in most of his categories. So he's not someone that understands right now how to put himself in the advantageous situations. He's more about winning and then finding ways to get open and be available to his quarterback. That's why he meshes so well with Brock Purdy. When Brock Purdy plays ahead of the sticks, he's on time and he's reading against zone coverage, and the ball comes out, that connection is going to be so fruitful. It's going to be fantastic, and he's going to be a third down, first down churner consistently at the NFL level. So I really did appreciate all the different ways that he can win, and the ways, honestly, that the 49ers used him. It wasn't just one, we want to get the ball, timing route, spot route, out routes, in route. No. Vertical routes. You had multiple out routes where he was able to win. He shows a couple of there was a route that he ran against the Detroit Lions where they move him from right to left in motion, creates a natural inside leverage advantage against Ricky Pearsall. So he gets to release up vertically, that DB stays on that inside hip, and then he sells the fade route. He kind of breaks to the fade and then out towards the sideline. There's like 5 yards separation. Ball's a little bit off target, but he tips it to himself and then toe taps in. Like, that's the kind of player. He's so aware. He's got great footwork and so smart about where he is on the field at all times. So the connection, I think, is the most important part for me. Even though there are some questions about the downfield ability, in my opinion, for Brock Purdy, these guys are going to be on, especially if it's on the same page in year 2, they're going to be on time. They're going to be able to exploit zone defenses at a very, very high rate. Man coverage, he's going to be open too. The difference is Brock going to consistently get better against man coverage. Last year, he tested more windows. He kind of had to, right? With the injuries and the way things were going with the 49ers season, it was more on his shoulders. So we saw him test more windows that was more fruitful at times. Some guys were able to bail him out. You also saw a lot more underthrown footballs down the field, down the sidelines. That's where we need to see a little bit more improvement from Brock. Anticipation throws into windows, right? That's where a guy like Ricky Pearsall, who didn't drop a football last year, by the way, didn't drop one. He was just fantastic. Didn't matter if it was through contact, didn't matter where it was on the field. He was able to haul in the football. That's a way you become a trusted player. So I think when you see these guys develop, regardless of what happens with Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings has done a lot of growth, has had a lot of growth in this offense too. It's a nice, fun place for these receivers to thrive. And Ricky Pearsall just fits exactly what Brock Purdy wants in the terms of the zone exploitation, but a lot of upside as a man and vertical player that I didn't really see.
Yeah, and I want to throw some numbers here, man. He's been so, again, it's a small sample size once he got healthy and everything, and once he got the opportunities in this offense. Against press coverage, 76 routes ran. He was targeted 12 times, caught 9 of 12 for 96 yards receiving, 2 receiving touchdowns, almost 11 yards per reception, a catch percentage of 75%. His catch rate over expectation plus 17.7. You know what I mean? He averaged about roughly 2 yards of separation against off coverage, 134 routes, because you know that offense forces you out of man a lot of times, especially with Christian McCaffrey in the backfield and George Kittle. It can force you more into zone and off coverage. 134 routes ran, 25 targets, 16 receptions, 180 yards receiving touchdown, about 11 yards per reception, 64% catch percentage. But even then, when you look at your separation, right? Even tight window stuff, right? 11 targets, 5 receptions, and when we talk about tight window, less than a yard of separation, guys. Less than a yard of separation. He had a catch percentage of 45.5%. His catch rate over expectation plus 11.7%. 5 receptions, 59 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns on tight window throws or tight window targets. So he's been just that, and that's why I think for me is like Brandon Ayuk as long as Brandon Ayuk is fine and he's doing what he needs to do and there's no problems, then Ricky's always going to be that wide receiver 2 to him. But if they decided to move him, like, and just from a catch percentage standpoint, in breaking routes, 60%, out breaking routes, 73.3, vertical routes, 71.4. His catch percentage is so consistent, being 60 and above on all those different routes, and he averages at worst 2 yards of separation, depending on the route type.
Correct,
so this is a guy, I think, with Brock Purdy, and that now I think, for one, this to me means, and for those wondering, like, DP, what does that mean? I think it means that Kyle Shanahan is going to trust him more in 2025. When you're catching the ball, when you're getting open, you're averaging over 2 yards of separation. Brock Purdy, like Bryce Young, like Tua Tagovailoa, like the Mac Joneses, and certain, like, physically limited quarterbacks from an arm talent standpoint, they need guys like Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk who can win on grass. You don't always, like, these are not the guys that are going to push the ball vertically down the field, win the vertical plane and things of that nature. These are the type of guys, Dan, and guys that they need separators, and that's what Ricky Pearsall is going to be. And I truly believe, and the fact that he plays inside and out, and the fact that, like, you go back, like, this, like, week 7, I think was his first start, or, like, again, he played a lot. He played like 52% out wide, then 48% in the slot. His ability to move around, while I think you got Brandon Ayuk in that same game, ran the team high of like 84% of his routes were out wide. So you're going to let him play the X and let Ricky Pearsall be that movement chain piece, that chess piece. Yeah, stock up for Ricky Pearsall. And guys, for fantasy, if you don't have him on your team, your dynasty roster, whatever it may be, go ahead and buy in, man. Buy in on that Ricky Pearsall. I know I'm going to be keeping my eye on him when my redraft league that I run every year kicks up. I know I'm going to be keeping my eye on him in the later rounds because I truly believe he can have a big-time role. No Deebo Samuel this year. Ricky Pearsall might be the guy that steps into that wide receiver 2 role, and I think Brock Purdy will benefit from it. And Brock Purdy's he's got to get the ball to him down the field because he left a lot of yards and a lot of points by underthrowing routes, not hitting him vertically on some of those deep post routes and things like that. This guy's talented, Dan, and I think this is maybe a big year loading for Ricky Pearsall, where he kind of, I guess, not so much introduce himself, but reintroduces himself to the football world. Now that he's healthy, going to a full offseason healthy, looking to hit the ground running from week 1. But guys, listen, that is our show. Ricky Pearsall. I guess I think he could be wide receiver 1 on this team, especially if they move on from Brandon Ayuk. And, of course, Rome Odunze, guy that did everything that Chicago asked him to do in a very toxic situation with the coaching staff and everything else of all the stories that's coming out from Shane Waldron and that coaching staff that was there last year. Now with Ben Johnson, looking for both of these guys to have really good second years. And truly, that 2024 wide receiver class, if these guys keep trending in the direction, it might be one of those ones, man. Might be one of those ones. But listen, guys, we thank you guys so much for tapping in with us here on the Scouting Room NFL podcast with Dame and Dan. Again, I'm Dame, and that is Dan. Go subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast, you can find this one. Go subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review on the Apple on the audio podcast side of things. And if you're on YouTube, listen, like, comment, tell us how you feel about Ricky Pearsall and Rome Odunze. And until next time, guys, we're going to come back with some defenders, man. We're getting to some of the defenders from the 2024 NFL draft class. But again, guys, this is the NFL Scouting Podcast with Dame and Dan. I'm Dame, and that's Dan.